Hello everyone, I'm Bridget Cook-Burch from Inspired Legacy Publishing, and I'm so excited to introduce you to our author, Madison Frederick. Madison is going to tell you all about her book. So Madison, please tell us the name, the title, and give your little spiel or elevator pitch about the book.
Happy to, I'm glad to be here. The title of the book is Untangle the Web of Narcissism, From Deceit and Chaos to Finding Your Sanity. And the web of the narcissism is all about the learned behaviors that I picked up and perfected over the course of many years due to my dad being a narcissist. So that's what the book is about in a nutshell. It's my life's journey, and throughout the book I talk about many different aspects of the learned behaviors that I learned.
Why don't you tell us about how you came up with the title?
The title was a collaborative effort. We were at a dinner with a lot of fellow authors, and we were throwing ideas around, and when somebody said untangle the web, it was like bells and whistles. I knew that that was it because of the dynamics of the book is very intricate and it touches many, many different areas. The precipice of the book started when I received an email, and the first chapter is titled Email Bombshell. And it really was just that. I was accused of being a narcissist, and it totally pulled the rug out from underneath me. And through being labeled as that, if you will, then I started to really wonder and ponder, am I a narcissist? So looking at the subject of narcissism, I started to do a deep dive into my own life, and I found many, many areas that contributed to showing up with narcissistic behaviors. And so enabling and not empowering people was one of my first gigs that I took on in my life. I was so convinced that I had to be there and do everything, or it wouldn't get done, or it wouldn't get done as well. Becoming aware of how I had enabled my children, that was kind of the first stepping stone. And then I branched out and learned how I enabled my first husband and on down the road. And as each piece of the puzzle fell together, then I was able to discover all of the different things that I had picked up and pretty much perfected all of these learned behaviors.
So you perfected the learned behaviors, and then there was the disentangling of that web.
Exactly.
How many years of a journey did this take you on? That from recognizing you had these own behaviors and skill sets that you developed out of survival, and then being able to really begin to thrive?
I kind of did a sidestep in my journey, in that I signed up for all of these courses, and I was looking for solutions out here instead of in here. And when the in here part came was when I started writing this book after that accusation of being a narcissist. And that's when the true healing on my journey began, because I was able to do a deep dive and figure out, oh, you mean when this particular event happened and I reacted that way? That's not cool. And so I was able to take accountability for myself, and it really had to be internally taken in before I could do anything else.
In your book, because we know that there are millions of people who are affected by narcissism, those who have it and display those characteristics, and then those who unfortunately are at the mercy of someone with narcissistic tendencies. Would you share with us some of the issues that people might face if they're in the middle of a narcissistic relationship?
One thing that I want to make clear right here is that narcissism and gaslighting, all of the different isms or whatever, they're not black and white. And when I first started looking into what is a narcissist, there, good old Google, there's a lot of different variations of what a narcissist is, what their behaviors are, and all of that kind of thing. And I really had to take a look and say, okay, when, for instance, I talk about an incident when I was younger, I think I was 8 or 9, that we went to a swimming pool and my dad threw me in the deep end of the pool. and it was a sink or swim, and it terrorized me. And when all was said and done and I was rescued by this kind woman, my dad's attitude was, what's the big deal? You know, I was just trying to help you. And when I took and pulled that apart and really understood that my dad's behavior, a lot of it isn't textbook down the line with A, B, C, D. I had to look and see, well, how did that affect me personally? And that's really how I've approached everything in this book that I've written about. It's my personal experiences. So my experience of being thrown in a pool by a narcissist isn't going to be everybody else's story. So by taking a look at all of that and picking it apart and really going back into a deep dive of my of growing up, and then understanding that because we do things until we're ready to change and acknowledge things, we have a tendency to go back into the same behaviors. So I get married at age 18, and lo and behold, my husband turns out to be a narcissist. Now, as I mentioned, the textbook ABCDs, it wasn't the same with my husband as it was with my dad. And so psychologically and in the back of our being, we're drawn to that because that's what we know. And when you know all of those things, you can take a look and take accountability for yourself and your own actions, because reacting to a narcissist is on you too, to a degree. Because how you react and how you're affected by it is on you. The getting through it and learning from it is how we grow. We look at, say, well, at that situation, I might have been able to handle that a little bit differently, and just move on that way. And so that's all of the principles that I talk about in my book. That's really the way it unfolded, one piece at a time. You don't, you look at an elephant and, you know, there's a famous story that somebody touches the tail, somebody touches the ear blindfolded, and they're totally different experiences. And that really is the way it is with narcissism or gaslighting or any of the other behaviors that I talk about in my book.
Mm-hmm. But there are some indelible patterns that people can take a look at, because part of the effects of having a narcissist or having a relationship with a narcissist is that gaslighting often occurs, not all the time, but often occurs, and the other person could be made to feel crazy. And so do you go into some of those details so that readers can untangle in their own minds the effects of being in a relationship with a narcissist?
Absolutely, I do. And I've been, there's been many people that have shared with me that have actually read the book so far, that each chapter they've been able to take a look at their own life and do some reflection and say, you know, hey, you know, maybe this is what's happened to me, and maybe I, you know, can learn something from this and do better in my own life. So at the end of each chapter, I do talk about some of the influences, the tools that I've learned along the way, automatic writing, a lot of them, and there's resources in that book that can really help people do a deep dive and understand where they are in their life in relation to those issues. Typically, narcissists always have a lot of bravado. They only think of themselves first. It's all about appearances. At least in my dad's case, it was about appearances and always trying to one-up somebody else. My uncle bought a boat. Dad had to buy a bigger one and better one. My uncle bought a camper. Dad had to buy a camper. He came up to visit my husband and I when we lived in Washington State. My husband was into black powder guns, so my dad had to do that. And instead of just having one, he had to have 3. And it's things like that, and very much belittling people. Anytime I had an idea about doing something, oh no, that's not good. You need to do it this way. He told me I needed to go to secretarial school because that's the only way I could earn a second income, because my husband was the breadwinner. Just a lot of ideas that he brought to the table from his youth really influenced how he and our relationship was, making me feel small and not heard. I always had these things in the back of my head, but I was never able to say the but, because I was always put down before that sentence even had a chance to formulate and come out of my mouth.
This has been such a huge exploratory journey for you. And it took a few years for you to be able to lay this out and put it out all on paper. Will you describe your Shero's journey in the writing of this book, and what did it unearth inside of you?
Oh, humongous thing. So I kind of liken my journey of awareness and all of that similar to that of what I had as a writer. When I started writing, there was a lot of justification I did. When I first went to my first writer's retreat, I had written almost 37,000 words. When I get there, there was one particular topic that I had written on that was 14 pages long. And it was filled with, you did this, you did that. It was on gaslighting. And all kinds of things of what the other person was. And when I finally got serious and started taking a look and taking responsibility in my own life for things that I'd done, those 14 pages, I think in the actual book, I might have a sentence and a half out of all of those 14 pages. So it is a journey. You know, you don't get well or get better. It's always a progression. With writing, it was a piece here and a piece there, fine-tuning, tweaking, and that's the way it was in my journey of getting better. Learn one piece, and then then it's like a puzzle. You learn one, and it eventually my life dovetailed very nicely. And so what used to take me hours, sometimes years, to get through something because I was so ingrained in whose fault it was, that now when things happen, it's a lot easier for me to look at a situation, an event or whatever, and say, oh, geez, maybe it wasn't them, maybe it was my reaction to that, and what can I do differently? So the tools that I teach, like EFT tapping, has been a huge factor in my life, because I've been able to take a step back, look at it, and take responsibility for my piece.
Oh, that's beautiful. So are you saying that as you were writing, you were also healing and growing?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Many times I wanted to just give up and just say, yeah, I'm not doing this. And my book, the way it was written, I didn't start out from first chapter to third, second, third, and fourth. No. I took each topic as I was growing. That's the topic that I wrote about. And I think by the end of the book, when we started in the editing process, we rearranged all of those titles, all of those chapters, to where it made cohesive sense, but it isn't necessarily the way I wrote it. Like I wrote about my dad's story first, and then I wrote about my sexual abuse second, because I was avoiding looking at some of the other stuff first. It was very, very difficult for me to write stuff that was really hard. My story about estrangement was really, really tough. Lots of tears, lots of, I can't do this. When I was trying to write that chapter, it was hard.
Yeah. It also seemed, in my opinion, to spur the most growth in you. There was a lot of beautiful humility, and also this incredible fire of courageousness that I saw in you. And I think, to put in terms of what I've seen in your journey, is that it became really important to write this story, not just as a healing tool for yourself, but also what you could give to so many others. So will you share with the listeners and the readers why this book, and why now? Why is it so important now?
I think it can be best summed up by telling the story of one of my friends that I had asked to read my book. And she contacted me, and we talked quite frequently, and she was a little bit timid to tell me that she couldn't read the book, that she was really triggered after she'd read the second and third chapter. and she just couldn't do it. But unbeknownst to me, she took those topics of being triggered and did some further inner work on herself using some other tools that we both know, and picked the book back up. She finished the book, and I didn't know she was even reading it again. And after she finished it, she sent me an email and said, "Madison, if I hadn't read that book, I never would have been triggered, and it never would have spurred me on to look at this stuff that I needed to heal. So without that book, it would not have happened." Wow. And that's why I'm writing the book, is so that it's not about the money, it's not about any fame that may or may not come, who knows, but it's really to give people an avenue to take a look at their own lives and say, maybe this is something that I need to take a look at.
Beautiful. I've noticed that that's one of your greatest gifts, is to take a look, and you're really a listener to other people. So you've done a tremendous amount of research, you've done a great deal of inner work, and now you're also coaching and training other people to untangle the web of narcissism, codependency, and many other issues that they may have in life, to become stronger on the other side. So will you let people know, what kind of work do you do?
I love to help people, I love to teach. I've done that for many, many years in my job career, but one of the things that I really enjoy doing is coaching people. I offer group coaching and individual coaching. I'm on podcasts, I'm out in the community a lot. I believe that God put me here and gave me the opportunity to be raised by a narcissist, to experience gaslighting, to experience enabling and empowerment, and all of those behaviors, the codependency, all of those things that I talk about in my 18 chapters in the book are all different. I am helping people realize all of those things and take it to heart and figure out what it is that makes them tick, and really assist them in taking stock of their life, so when they learn more and know better, they can do better. You can contact me on my website, madisonfrederick.com, and schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me, that we can discover how I might be of best service to you. And I look forward to hearing from you.